Hello, guys. My name is Naveed Manzoor. I am the guy who basically wrote the course for the association, and um, there is also a few other uh, papers that I wrote on researching on the internet. So, putting it all together, I think I should be able to help you guys with getting basics of how the search works and what type of search operators to use. I'm just going to start with the first introduction to the course today. I need you to know that we have a sequence of courses. This is just one of them, and we have different levels of courses depending on the complexity and the training that you've got previously. Right now, we are in level 2 out of 5 levels. These are the series of webinars that we offer. So we started off with level 1, which was something which quite basic, I guess. So coming to the level 2, we have ways of how to use the operators, which is booleans and advanced search operators and symbols and all those things. But it is going to be at a level where you may still have certain questions, but if they are the type of questions which requires a lot more time to explain, then you'll have to take the third webinar, which is web search with advanced search operators. And after that, we've got another webinar that is scheduled. I believe it's in November, the second week, which is for those who have actually done level 2 and 3. It's called Building Complex Web Search Queries. Number 5 is for researching, investigating, and looking for information in the sense where you want to investigate and verify things like fake news or the fake videos and all those things that are there in the social media. So let's start with giving you an overview of what today's lecture is going to be like and how we will proceed. First, we will start with the web content search. It is going to give you a concept of how and where the information resides on the web index pages. Basically, these are the pages that the search engine has pulled and indexed out of so many of those domains out there. So individually, they are called web pages. Occasionally, we will use the term as content pages. So I don't want you to get confused with that. The number 2 lecture, which is going to be, I believe it's going to be 15 minutes. This is to do with getting an understanding of how the search query actually looks for the searched words or the search terms, and how it goes into the HTML tags and tries to match it with what you have put in the query. So this, by the way, occasionally, I get a question where people get confused in understanding why they have to go through learning the HTML part, which is the programming part, the code that runs behind the web pages. But once they go through it, they understand at the time when they apply the search queries, they know where those queries are going to look for certain type of information, because HTML code is where the search engine actually goes, reviews what the content is and matches with your search terms. So essentially, we will just breeze through it, and without confusing anyone. That would be my effort. The third thing that we would be looking at is the keywords and search phrase. Maybe I'm not sure. Let's call it the context or the intent interpretation of search engines. This is what number 3 is going to teach you. Number 4 is the basic search operators, booleans, and how to apply them. Apparently, it seems that booleans are pretty well known, and everybody seems to have or perceive as being so easy that they don't need too much on it, or they feel comfortable using Booleans, but there are certain complexities attached to it when you're doing multi-search and you've got several search phrases and search terms, and how you connect with them, and to apply 3 or 4 different types of Boolean operators. Number 5 is advanced search operators. At this level, we expect that you have a command on the basics of Booleans, so that we can use those Booleans in advanced search, because without those, the advanced search is kind of incomplete. We need those Boolean operators and notations to execute the advanced search operators. Then the 6th lecture is going to be practical examples. This is where I can ask you if you have any specific queries or search difficulties that you want to talk about, and we can probably, if we have enough time, we can actually illustrate that in the real web browser and see what the outcome is like. The 7th one is something that I probably won't have time to complete, but it is something that you can take home, or I can give it to you as an assignment. If the time permits, we'd still go through it, depending, because it might take additional 10 minutes. So let's get started with the slide. The first one is how the search keywords and search phrases are put together, and what is really the function of the search engine when it starts to interpret it and tries to make sense of it, so that we know where we are heading, as we are going to apply all those search terms and keywords to know where the search is going to execute the different commands is important at this level. It is more on the conceptual side rather than the practical application, which is what we will demonstrate with using those search operators. So the first thing first, the search. What does the search do? It reads the textual data. So we have to understand that anything that you are going to query. Query means a search term that you're going to use, put in the address bar, and press the search button. So whatever is put in there is basically a query. A query can be small, it could be short, it could be long, and queries means that we have to be very selective in the type of keywords or the search phrase that we use. So essentially, no matter what type of search operators you're using, the most important thing that will interact with those search operators and give you the correct result is how you select your search phrases. So this is just on the conceptual side, and that's why I have a diagram here, but we'll just read it through quickly. So first of all, the best understanding of what search engine is looking at is the textual data. That means it is not looking at numbers, it is not looking at the record name, or it is not like a traditional database, but it is really a bunch of words that are actually part of the content. But now when we talk about content, we are talking about the images and the videos. But no matter what type of content it is, you have to know that the search will only recognize if that content, including videos, are named in text. So it has to be textual, so that it can relate to the words, make sense out of the phrases, or start to communicate with you. So we've got a textual database. This is what the search engine is going to read. Second thing is that it's going to seek relationship between words. That means it will have a built-in intelligence which will look at the intent of your phrasing and how you're putting the words together. So that is part of linguistic. Linguistic is, of course, the science of words and the communications. Linguistic, right now we're talking plainly about the English language. So linguistics means that it is redundant or it is useless unless there's intelligence built into it. That intelligence is called the semantics. So the semantics is one of the important logics that are placed into the algorithm, and it works in conjunction with the content, and it tries to make sense out of it. The semantics is a broad term. Within the different layers of semantics, there is artificial intelligence, there is also machine learning involved, and there is something called lemmatization or stemming of words and so on. But anyway, so this is just one intelligence, and then there is a part which is called context, meaning that if you have to make sense or make sense out of writing those search queries in words, then you have to make sure that there is some context to it, which allows for the search engine to understand the relationship based on your location, based on season. If it's summer, then if you're looking for clothing, it's summer clothing. So there is a context which could be implied or it could be explicit. Explicit is when you are typing something and you are asking the search engine specifically to find results based on those search phrases. Context, if it is implied, means that the search engine, based on its history of records and its own experience and its machine learning capability, is attaching that context to your phrase, thinking as if it is hand holding, or it is telling you that here is your phrase, but it is incomplete. However, I can put this information for you. So this is the other thing that the search engine will do. The third thing is that it learns your experience, which I just explained, is machine learning, and then there is a predictive and suggestive words and search phrases that you can look at as you type, and when the search results come back to you, it still gives you more opportunities to look at something called suggestive questions, and people also searched and so on. Here I'm being very focused on the Google search engine, not talking about Bing. I'm not talking about the language of Bing, but just to put your mind at ease, there isn't a huge difference between the search operators used by Bing and Google, as well as the interface seems to be more or less the same. So it's not that we are going to miss too much if we don't discuss the Bing search engine. The fourth one is understanding user search intent or the type of query, which means that anytime that we write something, even if we are, following the predictive, suggestive, or based on whatever we wrote, there are certain triggers and certain criteria which shapes up your query. If it is purely language based, or it is, say, search phrases, and these are nothing. I'm not talking about the search operators yet, and we are not talking about any kind of operators that play a huge part in getting those triggers started. But this is, in the simplest way, a trigger that is totally dependent on how you write your query and how you word it. So now, looking at this diagram, the overall view is that the textual database needs to be understood, because this is what the search engine is going to read. The mechanism of search, linguistically speaking, use a software called lexicon, which does the processing of words and their relationship with each other, including the relationship of search phrases. So whatever else it uses are the underlying two major processes it does is called lemmatization and stemming. I'm just going to leave it at this point and explain it when the time comes, or if we have extra time, because the rest that we will be discussing is more important. The other thing that we would be querying is the content pages, or whatever the searched, indexed content pages have as text, multimedia, or everything else that resides in there, including tags, meta tags, and so on. But again, we are just calling it Generally, we call it a content page. The query language that works on the query decides this, because this is the text and everything in there, which is which is what we are querying. But how we query it depends on the language. The query language is where you use your symbols, operators, notations, and all that we are going to be learning today. The third thing is the structure, meaning that the content page alone is not sufficient for you to execute a search query. That means that the vehicle which actually takes that search query from you and hands it over to the search engine has a structure of its own, which is linked to the domain name, which domain you're going to, the index structure of the database of the search engine itself, and so on. And then semantics, as we talked about, it's not spelled correctly. Semantics is SE, is with E. So I apologize. Somebody might have missed out on spell correction. Now, the semantics that is applied is important to learn. Not that we are learning the entire algorithms of how the semantics work, but at least we know that few things that the search engine would like to know is that if you give it a question, or if you are putting a query or putting keywords in it, it needs to tell you what it will accept as an acceptable form of the search phrase, something that it will end up interpreting, and based on its interpretation, it's obviously going to produce results. So you have to understand what search engine understands, so you can give it the right query and let it produce the right result for you. So moving on to the structure of database is how it is set up. We'll just breeze through it. Like I said, there are a few slides which seems very complicated, and they may have different depths to it. But from your mind, or from what I have to explain to you, you have to look at it in a general view. There is something that's a pain I need to get rid of. Okay, so there is a question here which I'm looking at. If you don't mind, just give me a moment. I have to read it. Nothing about browsers.
Booleans.
Okay. So, if we talk about the browsers, let me tell you, Williams. So Williams have asked me a question. He is asking. Chris, right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, the Booleans. I'm sorry, I misread it. Okay, so we are heading to those slides. So let me explain this to you, Chris. I know you are anxious and you want to skip certain slides, but if I have to tell you, and if I prove to you that unless you know what I'm talking about on these slides, you will have difficulty in learning Booleans. If you trust me on that, and I want you to follow these slides, like I said, as I mentioned, and in my next segment, we will start with the Booleans. Of course, this is optional. If you feel that you want me to skip onto that, I think it'll be another 15 minutes before I get to the Booleans part. But if you still feel that you know something about this, then you can join us back in 15 minutes. But surely we will be bang on to Booleans, and we'll really go through it in detail. So just continuing conceptually, again, we are back onto how the search engine is reading the web search pages. I just want you to have a quick look at this slide and understand that the search engine, the way it's going to read its pages, or I guess the index is going to be read is different from how we look at the web page. This is, for example, a web page, right? And if we feel that this is what the search engine is reading and everything that content, every content in here is read by it, that's probably something that is confusing for some of you, because there is certain part of the text that the search engine will understand because it's going to be read. However, there is another part which is called metadata, which explains what this page is about, or what it contains, or some of the headings that are in there that doesn't show up here, but those headings are in the HTML code. The code is what is run behind the page that you're looking at, and that code has something called meta tags, or information about information. Meta means the information about rest of the page, and it defines the page. The some of the things that you look at when the search result comes in, for example, this snippet that shows up, you see these three different things. The one on the very top is called title. The title may not be visible on the page that you are looking at as a user, the web browser, or anything that brings that page over to you may not show you that this statement, Association of Internet Research Specialists, actually is in the title tag of the HTML code, which only the search engine can understand and read. A user will not know what the search engine is reading, but when you put the query in there and you execute it, the search engine is definitely bringing results, so you know where it's coming from. This is coming from the page. It's called title, and if you look at the meta tags, or anything that defines what the title is, you can read it through here. See right here, if I look at the back end and look at the HTML, the title says Association of Internet Research Specialists, and there's a bar and there is AOFIRS. So it is exactly the same. The second thing is the link. For instance, the link is coming from another tag is called base href. It's a syntax, but it basically is telling you that this is where the link is, and if the search engine read anything about this and brought this to you, it's because it has read the HTML code at the back. The description is coming from right here. Another tag is called meta name, or meta tag of description, and this is where the description is pulled from. So anytime you don't see a lot of text over here is because the search engine, first of all, has a limitation to the number of words it can pick up or bring to you for you to look at. And the second thing is that anyone who is doing the programming and putting those words within the description wants to make sure that those are popular words, or the words that should be known to the search engine, and based on that it will pull the pages. Now, it is not a restriction that would stop the search engine to go deeper onto this page and look up rest of the text, like these headings over here and rest of the text of the page. It could be several paragraphs, it could be small headings, it could be some letters in bold, but search engine has a way of identifying what is important. For instance, if there's something over in the tags that gives it gives it a notation that this statement is to be in bold, then the search engine knows that it is important, so that it would take that into account when it is matching your search query and search phrases. Again, we are not learning HTML here, and so we are going to move forward. Let's move further. Okay, so the difference between keywords and search phrases. Keyword, of course, is a single word. Right here, you can see there is 3 words we have used: quick, brown, fox. Each one of these words are called keywords, and when these are put together, these are 3 keywords. They are not one search phrase. I wouldn't call it a search phrase, but technically people do call it a phrase when they put the search in there. That's because they think that the search engine would think of these 3 as one phrase, like quick brown fox. What apparently from the sound of it, and we all know that it is used very commonly and it is should be one phrase, but who is to know that the search engine would think of quick as a separate word, or it would combine quick with brown or brown with fox, or it is a name brown that he would look for. Fox is still a name, so who knows in what combination the search engine would look at it. So for us to make sure it is really a phrase in the true sense of putting the query for finding it in the same sequence like quick brown fox as a single phrase, we need to put this within quotes. So the quotation marks, these two quotations, if we enclose these three words in this sequence within quotes, this means that we are defining a phrase, and we want to make sure that the search engine is pushed, or it is actually it is supposed to look at it as a single phrase, which may have a comma or a question mark or whatever we put in between. It has to match as if it is a mirror image of it. So this is where, whenever you're doing a query for the search phrase, you always enclose that within quotes, and it is part of the Boolean notations. And these are not Boolean operators. This is called a notation. So this is one difference. Now let's look at where the ambiguities are in searched keywords. Now people don't think that, like I explained to you before, if you don't put the right keywords, if you don't put the right correct phrase in there, you will end up wrong whatever Boolean operator you use. And however you twist the arm of the search engine by, by putting those restrictions with those operators, it will still malfunction. You not get the correct results. Or as you have seen, like every time you put a query with certain quotation marks, or you put a boolean and it just returns an error that says that please remove this notation or please remove this operator, so that it has something more to look at. It is not restricted anymore. It is, in true sense, is an error. It could be because you have phrased it wrong or your query has some flaws. So that is a litmus test for finding out quickly if your query is correct. Again, the ambiguity is there. So we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. But here I'm just explaining, some of the ways that we put the query, like Lenovo is IBM, but it is a synonym. So if we are looking for Lenovo laptop, or if you're doing IBM without putting Lenovo, it wouldn't know, because it can give you all different results like IBM machines. Java, for instance, is a coffee. It is a island in Indonesia. It could be coffee beans, or you're looking for a Java coffee bar, and so on. So there are several ambiguities, and there is intelligence that sort of overcomes these barriers. Skipping the slides we may not need. Context is very important. Context to a query. If you have to put a query that says where is okay, Chris, we're still using quotation, so officially you're still in the Boolean zone. If I don't put quotations, it is not really the Booleans we are talking about. So as we look up the slides, I see that it is showing the query in terms of the search phrase with two variations. Who is to say that you will get a better result if you use the word height instead of how high is the Empire State's building, for example? In both instances, you will get different result. But here, the query itself is not incorrect. It's the way you have actually, you have placed it within quotations. This is a question, so more than likely you will get suggestive questions when you put this query, and it will throw you off from the straightforward answers that you would get from this query, which could be slightly better. Now again, it is a hit and trial, so if you keep changing, instead of so some of the words like height can be replaced by tall. You could just say Empire State not even use the word building and just put height, you would still get a good answer. So it just depends. Anyway, this is not as important as this diagram here. Here, I'm just trying to illustrate when you put your query, you are trying to make the search engine understand your intent. Intent is, as humans, we are not, we make a lot of mistakes. I mean, anybody could ask a question in 3 different ways, or I can ask the same question in differently than the way you would put it, or you may have something in your mind and you cannot express it correctly when you put it in limited number of words. It makes it even more difficult, and so on. So anyway, the intent is something that the search engine has to understand. Like whenever you are putting those words and search phrases, it is trying to give it a better meaning. So the better way to do it is to give it a context, like relationship. Like if it is, supposing if Empire State Building is not famous anymore, just as an example, and then the context would be that tallest building in New York, for example, then New York is a context for the query. Now the results that you would get or expect, of course, depends on the relevance of how popular that search phrase is, or based on I guess the algorithms of the search engine, and it would define if those search words are relevant enough. And the relevance is dependent on the pages, the web page authority. That means it has a good reference, it has a lot of links coming to it, it is popular, it has a fresh content, and so on. And then based on that, it ranks the page, and these two together gives it a relevance. And the higher the relevance, the more likelihood of seeing the results. But everything is flowing through the intent, as you can see. Now, another thing that is important to understand is that overall, when you put the query without going into the granularity of contextual search, let's give it a broader view. There are 4 different types of search, and I have just shown it, in this diagram, and I'll explain it very quickly. Because all 4 of these are triggers. Triggers means that before, it's like you are dressed up for an occasion, and based on how you're dressed up, as you enter into any event, they would look at your dressing, look at your face, and make their own judgment before seating you, let's say, in a certain place, or if you don't have a reservation. So anything that is based on look and feel of how from the face of it looks, those are the triggers, the initial triggers that work to get rest of the, I guess, processes within the algorithms going. And it affects the way search engine is going to interpret your intent. So there is 4 types of searches, and I will try to magnify this. So we'll just talk about this quickly. If it is a navigational query, that means that you know where to go, which means that you have the domain name, the place that you want to find something, or if there is a how you have the bookmark links and so on. So that is navigational query. The other one is transactional. That means if you are looking up something very specific, the electronics like Toshiba laptop, model 320 or something, then it is likely that you would get results which are coming from the e-commerce side, instead of getting to know what the computer is about, or say you want more specification, consumer reviews, and so on. So that would be triggered when you are putting a search query that it can be defined under the broad category of transactional query, and that initializes the commercial aspect of your intent, and and so you can compare, you can buy. Informational is If you're looking to find something, you are going from one link to another, you're using the same search words. You are then trying to explore more and more. So, it is going to give you more suggestions. It's going to, so these are the intelligence that are there, but essentially these are the triggers that will definitely impact how you write not how you write, I'm sorry, but the way you write the query will define what type of query it is, and based on that, it will get everything else set up for you within the algorithm, as if it is welcoming you, telling you that this is based on how you presented yourself. Now I'm going to work in a different way, because I think the search engine thinks that they understand your intent much better. So these are um, some of the broader aspects of how the query gets interpreted. Then we've got context that we spoke about. I explained it to you briefly. There is two type of context: one which you define, and one which is implied or given or attached to your query by the search engine based on its experience, history, based on its own intelligence, let's say. So in this example, if it is a Java word that we are searching, then it will look at the primary context, which is explicit, because you have used the query. Now these are three different examples. This doesn't mean that I'm using Java software, Java coffee, Java island all in one query, or all in one phrase. I'm saying that if you use any combination of phrase with one keyword, Java, which could be the primary word, and software or coffee or island can be three contexts, depending on what your selection is, because here you are going to actually define. So supposing if I say I'm looking for Java software, then I have not completed the query or made it long enough for the search to understand the context, because if I just type Java software, I will get two types of search results. I'll see the training, I'll see the programs, but I need to define better by saying that I am looking for, let's say I'm looking for training, then I say Java software training. So software would be my primary context, secondary context would be training. It is important to, if you're using short queries which has a lot of results, then as soon as you get the search results coming back to you, you look at what is the nature of those results and define what the secondary context is there, or it is the secondary context which you have to clean further. So supposing if I'm looking for the training part, let's say my query is Java software training. So what happens is that now the search engine is equipped with enough information, or it has the explicit context which defines the intent of your search. Now implicit would be what the search engine would think of it, and it would attach or give it more meaning. That means it will bring you results that are based on the location, of course, where you are querying or where you're using your browsing. And then the second is pricing, of course, the e-commerce based. The reputation, of course, it is another thing that Google has. It's one of the several things that the Google assumes, that if any of those vendors or people who are offering the training has a better reputation or has more favorable websites with a lot of traffic, based on that, it's just going to bring it as a result which is forced or given to you, because that's what search thinks is more implicit, to the context of your explicit context you have defined. So this is one understanding. And of course, this is another chart. Let's not worry about this. This is about refinement of your search query to go to the next level. If you look at it, it's not complicated. It's very simple. If it is Java coffee, it would give you results like coffee bar, Tim Hortons, coffee beans. So it is making choices here. And then based on those choices, you will define better what you need. So you're going to give it context, and then the implicit context will attach itself. And if you have this understanding, and at the time when you're building your search phrases, you also think of where do you have restrictions, barriers, or forced implicit context that is eventually going to be imposed by the search engine. Then you would also learn how to overcome that barrier. So if I'm searching for something in New York and I'm sitting, let's say, in Dubai or somewhere in Middle East, or if I'm to find something somewhere else, then I will be stuck with the restrictions. So to overcome those restrictions from the very offset, when we are starting to put the queries together, we should plan it in a way that we get out of that geographical barrier, which also, by the way, has a huge impact on what the search outcome will be. So this is the reason why explicit and implicit context is important for us to define and to understand what's coming to us. Next thing is the query refinement. Every time you put a query, let's say if it is a word that is can have some sort of ambiguity, or it might have two different meaning. It could be a branding difference, it could be something that has to do with localization, like geographical barriers. Somebody thinks of, like in UK, if I say I'm standing in a line, then we have a problem coming from US, because they don't understand what the meaning of line is. What they think of line is basically call it a queue. So they say, okay, stand a queue, and so on and so forth. So depending on how you want to clean up your queries, you have to look at the search results, define your words: Jaguar car or Jaguar cat, Jaguar automobile is better or Jaguar car is better, Jaguar car local show, because here the objective is to find a showroom where you can buy a certain car or get prices for it. So this is the way to refine your query, and it is just a set of instructions, just a quick check sheet. I'm going to now tell you the factors that affect the context. One thing is location, so you can make that adjustment through your browser. The other thing is the session. So session means it could be a session 20 minutes ago, or it could be a session you did on the same browser, same machine, maybe 2 weeks ago. So browser has the ability to remember certain, you know, um, uh, you know, based on the timeline, and or based on the megabits that you've consumed browsing. It has the ability to record some information which it calls a recent session, um, or there is another history called uninterrupted session, which you may have done like 10 minutes ago. And then there is a history which goes way back, and that history is actually transferred over to your personalized account somewhere that Google is keeping a tab on, and it is actually recording it. So based on those sessions that you have done, it is going to impact your context. Uh, the other thing is personalization. So depending on what your privacy has been, or what you've allowed or not allowed, and what information is available, it will have an impact on the query context, because it is going to use all this data where it feels that it needs to give any of those wordings that you put some extra or implied meaning to. Then there is a commercial reason, seasoning. If it is a season where it's summer, then it'll start to think, if it's the clothing you're looking for, it'll assume that you're looking for summer clothing. If you write jeans, then it's going to pull the data not based on your previous sessions, as much as it will look up the seasonal clothing for you, or where the others who have websites that are offering seasonal clothing, those are the guys that will come up as a priority, as opposed to the ones who are selling t-shirts, for example. Then there is entity relationship. If there is a query that is missing one important information, or it is a sort of a very strict or restricted query, and it is finding hard to find exact wordings, then it'll ask It'll look up the relationships you have, like your family, friends. It'll basically, what it's saying is it's going to look into your social media account and social media trends and things of that nature. So let's just go forward. Semantically similar conversational sentences. Watch out for, like, the bird is hiding in the sink, birdie is washing in the water basin. Two different wordings. Birdie is a slang, so who knows how search engine is going to treat that. Some critical information might be different, and we don't actually at the time understand it, but it could be a political statement. It could make a difference between sending fake information or biased information or manipulative information. So, like these two sentences: army troops attempt to invade Kabul in April of 2010, versus US Army invaded the city of Kabul, Afghanistan in April last year 2010. So two different ways of expression. So I have like maybe 6 or 8 of these examples, but we skip these. Let's go forward and look at the anatomy of search terms. What are different components of search terms? Gosh. Let me just give it a minute. I'm going to pause and I'm going to ask you guys a few questions quickly. So I guess it's best that I speak on the mic instead of typing it. So far, we have spent like about an hour, almost, or 45 minutes, on giving you the background or giving you the concept. How are you finding it so far? Is this the kind of information or the type of information that you think would help you to learn more about the way the search queries are built using all those different operators which we are about to talk about? Just so that I have an idea, is something that you think that you were missing, or some concepts that would help? Yes or no would be good. Just collective answer, or maybe one or two of you can answer. You guys there? Everyone, can you hear me? Hello? Are we on? John, Chris? Is that, are you looking at my screen or? Okay. Yes, the screen is minimized. I asked you guys a question. Were you able to hear me? Okay, so all I'm asking is, so far, conceptually, did you get a good enough information, or you think the information you got was important, or you already knew about it? So I know, okay. All right. So it was useful. It was something that you guys didn't know about. And if you didn't, or if you knew little about it, now the concepts are clear. So the next thing is building the search queries using Boolean operators. Actually, there is a few more slides which I'm going to skip. Okay. So John, you took the full course. When did you take it? Was it through the webinar, or it was a self-study program that you took? Okay, so you took my webinar before. All right. All right. So I'll just get started. I'm going to skip few slides, and if we get time, we'll go through it. The slides that I've used previously in my other webinars had to do with figuring out how to define the elements that build the search phrases. But I feel that some of you would be anxious to get down to really actually applying these search operators. So I'm going to skip like 4 or 5 slides, and let me just do the booleans first. If we left with enough time, then maybe it would be best and more helpful if we can try some practical examples of queries based on what your specific questions or your specific concerns for building the queries uh, are going to be. So now I'm going to start with the operator. So let me just, I'm going to take a 5 minutes break after another 15 minutes. This is part of the program, and this is where we get some time to organize a little bit on our slides and grab a cup of coffee. So the Boolean operators, what we consider Booleans is the AND operator or a plus sign. We call those expanders, or alternative bar symbol we call differentiator. Some of the terms you will hear today are not conventional, because we feel that whenever there is something that needs to be added or improved, or something that we feel that we need to change, we find ourselves in a position that we should do that. And if any of you have a problem with understanding or relating it to the common phrases, and because this is a evolving industry, and whatever Google throws at us and gives to us, first of all, it's very limited. Secondly, everybody has started to do their own interpretations of so many definitions, and the jargon that's evolving is something that nobody has a control over. So we have decided to join them. So we sort of have our own sometimes. So don't get carried, don't start comparing it with everything else. Just think of it as something we are trying just to make things better. So we call or a differentiator, we call not or a minus sign as an excluder. The inverted commas or the quotation marks are notations or enforcers. Now, parenthesis is another thing which Google denies, as I guess it says that it doesn't support it anymore. It's not part of its defined or declared operators officially, but we have used it in a lot of instances. We are constantly experimenting and testing, and we find that this works. And apparently it just works in a situation which does not have any other alternative, especially when we are trying to put our booleans in a mathematical conventional way to submit a query. We have requirements where two groups are one set, and then another two groups are another set, and they need to be compared. So parenthesis is what encloses them and makes them fit into that group. That's why we will use it, and we will give you examples, and you can also see for yourself. Around or nesting is another operator which is really not officially part of Boolean, but we've included it in this slide. However, just think of everything from AND to the parenthesis as purely Booleans. Declared operators are the type of operators which we call advanced search operators, or generally known as advanced search operators, but we call them declared operators because here the way they're structured is is not to say that you can call it an advanced operator, because there's nothing advanced about it. They're just operators, except that it is a declaration of something. It defines something. It says it has a meaning to the wording it carries. File type is a word, whereas plus sign is a notation. And or boolean is not comparable to this, because and could be a conjoiner, and it could be something that is an adjective. But this wordings that are used here in title, all in title, has a meaning, and the word itself is given a meaning, so it has a declared meaning. That's why we call them declared operators. But you can think of them as advanced search operators, and there are so many of them. However, we will discuss a few examples from this part. Um, and even though it is shown, all of these are shown here as maybe all different versions or different flavors of it, but we will restrict ourselves to the file type, the snippets, the website domain, and the source. We'll talk about it a little bit later, because I don't want you to get confused at this point. Let's just focus on the booleans. So starting with the boolean, we know that there is a operator called a plus sign, or the AND operator. Now, what does the AND operator do? What AND is doing is actually expanding. It's an expander. It is adding more and more search terms. By the way, we will try to avoid single keywords in our examples, because a single keyword is really not something which provides, first of all, it doesn't provide good context. It doesn't give a better understanding for the search engine to give accurate results. So the minimum we will be using is two words together, so that we can call it a phrase, and enclosing it in the quotations, just to show that it is a single phrase. And at the same time, we would be comparing how the results come about when we remove the quotes, or if the search engine is going to treat them as single words, even though it comes across as a phrase when we write it, but without quotation, those are single words, and how the search engine treats it. And this is important because the booleans are basically providing a glue. It is providing a sort of it is giving it restrictions, and it is giving it instruction. So in order for us to apply in two different conditions of how these search operators would treat single keywords versus the search phrase or search phrase without quotation is important. And that's what we've done here. So take an example of the um, the three variations of the search phrases. We've used cloning humans, human clone, and cloning ethics. So these three of them have slightly different meaning, but they are used together is because someone is looking for a document that has a research that which includes any of these search terms or all of these search terms. So for us to first of all make sure that the search engine looks for the search results that has all three included in the snippets. This is a snippet, for example. The snippet, I don't think I explained it, but basically a single box of search result is a snippet made up of three components: the title, the link, and the description. So for us to apply AND operator has a dilemma, which is something which Chris might want to learn more about, is that the search engine Google or even Bing now is telling us that there is no need for you to put the AND operator in between search terms. So in a way, it is saying that you have to assume that there is a plus sign right here By the way, can you see my cursor? Because I'm moving my cursor and there were. Can you check, please? All right. So if you can see the cursor and it is visible, then I'm pointing to the end operator, or we call it operand or a Boolean operand, A and D with the capital. If I have to write it in small letters, then it won't be the operator anymore, because the search or the index interprets it as it does not interpret the capital A and D as a word. Instead, it is a set of instruction in Boolean language. So A and D capital. I've used A and D in a way that I have at least a gap of one character between one search term, let's say cloning humans, a gap of a single character, then A and D, and another gap of a single character and the next term, and so on. Another gap and then another term. In between, I've got and right after the search phrase or the search term, there has to be a single gap left at all the time. And also important, just as important, is not to leave a gap of two characters. So your search query has to be very accurate. This is not like a rocket science. Anybody can do that, except that you don't want to be clumsy when you're writing these queries. So assuming that we've got three different search phrases and we want all of them to be included in the search result, we have used the operator AND. Now, instead of using AND, had I used a plus sign, it would still work the same. Now, the third question that you might have in your mind is that if the Google is saying you don't need an AND and you don't need a plus sign and they will take care of it, then what happens? To my experience, and to as opposed to what Google says, it's not that I'm saying Google is right or wrong. It's just that Google is trying its best to make it convenient for the users, but at the same time, it's not able to, I guess, refine it enough that it would work a lot better without using these operators, because it is based on my experience, and not only myself, but all of us that work here, day and night we experiment with it. And I can tell you for a fact that even though it is said that you don't use AND or plus sign and it'll still work the same, it does not prove it to you. So for now, what I want you to know is that if you use the operator AND, you are basically asking one search phrase to connect with the other and the third in a way that all three are present in the web search, in the search result or the search result pages. So right here, mathematically speaking, if I say AOFIRS with the operator and then certification and membership, mathematically what it's done is that it has said that in the green, let's say the green bar here and the green bar here, there is a combination. Now this is a mathematical function and it is not any different from how the search engine interprets it, or how the search engine algorithms work. So mathematically, I want you to know that even if you don't use AND, or if you use AND, or if you use plus sign, anything that is a joiner or connecting these search terms or single keywords together are mathematically connected, and this is how it is interpreted. So get an understanding by looking at it. So the brackets that I have, or parentheses that I have enclosed, is giving the options or variations of it. AIRS and certification would be one. The other one would be the certification and membership, right? Because see, these brackets I've enclosed is giving you two variations of how these would be searched, even if we put the operator AND or not put the operator or put the plus sign. So this is how the mathematical function would be, and this is how it will expand in that ratio, or in that kind of combinations. So anytime you use AND, it doesn't mean that it is a restrictor totally. It is an expander, and it is also it creates a variation that gives different. It gives more opportunity for the search engine to look for their combinations. Now let's move forward. I just want to ask a quick question. If Chris has a question on this, where do I get to? Okay. Would you guys like to know what happens when we remove and we do as Google says, or when we remove the quotation marks and compare the queries and see what the effect is of AND operator? Okay, I thought so. Can we give it like a 5 minutes and I come back, because my schedule says that I have to take a break. Just 5 minutes, not more. We've got what's the time over there? 9, 10. What's the time over there? 12:30.
Yes.
Okay, just 5 minutes. So should be back 12:25. All right. See you guys. Just give it a 5 minutes. Thanks. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm saying that the link to the recording would be available on Monday, Tuesday, depends on edits, because they're going to do some edits to clear up the voice, and rest of the material will be available on Monday, because tomorrow is Sunday, and it goes to you through the email where you can download a PDF, and that would be done first thing Monday, and it usually is done after you have attended the webinars, so that you can, you know, look at it in a more productive way. So let's start now. Thank you. So we'll get started with the end situation and compare it as we left. I needed to give you the comparisons, and I have a slide here. You see, in this slide, I have actually used in the search these queries, which are marked as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 5 of them with different variations, where I have actually shown if we remove and, or if we put an and operator, how would the query turn up. And then, I've also tried to use the plus sign so that you know which query works better. It is important, like I said, query refinement is part of the process where you really have to think it through based on the results, is where you make amendments and you make adjustment to your query. So first query was that I used market research and market study, two words. I don't mind showing it to you in a real illustration with the browser, but it might take a little bit of time. However, these are the results that came up through the real query, and you can actually do it on your own and find out that these are real queries, real results. In the first instance, like Google says, remove the operator. You don't need it, because the two words here that we are searching is market research and market study. So I wanted to make sure that two of these search phrases, search terms, let's call them search terms going forward. So both search terms are to show up in my search results, and that's why I've put them one next to another with a gap of a single character, so the search knows that these are two phrases. Okay, and based on that, the outcome was that I got 9,680,000 results, which is a huge number of search results. However, that's one thing to look at when you get the search return and you look at the results, and I'm just picking up the first few search snippets, not the entire thing, because there could be 20 of them, and that will really create sort of a situation where there could be a confusion. But let's look at the perspective of what we need and did we get what we needed. So without the and operator, look at the results. We got the word market research showing. We got a separate word in the link which says research in it. It had started to, extract from the phrase itself, from the, quotation itself. It has started to pick and choose. That's one thing. The other thing is that market studies here, correct? Market is there. Market research is there. Market study again is there in the second snippet. Market study is in the link. Market study is in the description part. However, noticeable here is that it also picked up industry analysis. Now, apart from the operator situation, just being more going back onto the concept of context and the linguistic part, it has started to substitute the words. Even though market research seem to be the common word or the most popular words, they looked at market study as industry analysis. Why? Because linguistically it has the intelligence to think of market study as an industry analysis as well. And then we've got market research again. So all these results are coming, but look at the amount of results we are getting. The more results we get, the more confusing it is. That means the search engine is not getting a precision query because the results are numerous. So who is to know what if this query is strong enough to bring you exactly what you need? Even though it did bring few results, but there are so many of them. However, just we focus on the number of search results. So in the first query, without and operator, assuming that it has clumped these two search phrases, with each other, still we got a lot of search results. The results are numerous. In the second instance, we use the operand end, and the search results have become 10,100,000, which means that there is not a huge difference between query 1 and 2. And then looking at the results, we got more precise results, like market study is there, which was something that we got in the first result, but in the second result we got very we did not get exactly the same amount of results. So here I guess the question is that if these two queries were the same, if 1 and 2 were the same, then both results should have 10,100,000 or 9,680,000 results. So it did something, but it did not produce exactly what Google is saying. So to say that not to put the operator in between would be exactly the same as Google says is not agreed. In number 3 query, we used these two terms, market research, market study, without putting these in quotations. And the results that we got were 1,230,000,000. So this didn't work well for us, even though we did use and in between. And then coming to the fourth query, where we still, without putting enclosing these in quotations, we use these two terms, but with the exception that the second term we used was with the plus sign. So replacing and with the plus sign, again, where we are told that and plus is the same or they are both replaceable, how come we are getting two different types of search results? We got 34,600, which is far less than 1,230,000,000. So what it did and what it does, and as a convention based on our experience, is that whenever you put a notation of a plus sign or minus sign, as you will see the minus will come later, the plus sign works better than the word itself when you use A and D as an operator versus the notations. So try to use notations as a preferred operator than the Boolean itself. So when I did put the plus sign, you notice that I have not put it in between, like as there is no gap between the notation and the search phrase that needs to be added to the first term, market research. So whenever you put notations, you don't put them in the middle, like you don't leave gaps as you here with two gaps in between two search terms. You always put a notation next to the other term. So that is one thing. Now in the fifth query, we enclosed both these search terms, and we put a plus sign here. So the results we got is 9,330,000. Now the number of search results versus the quality of search results are two different things. So to say that just because we got less search result is more accurate is also not a good assumption. You have to look at the entire search results as a whole. So the search results got better quality of information, and the most relevant pages was the query number 5. That means that I have put a plus sign here, and I have not left these two search terms without putting anything in between, and I have not here I'm not assuming that there is a plus sign. I'm saying that I want to force it. I want to put a plus sign in there so that it gives me better search results. Even though between these two, between 1 and 5, you can see clearly there is not a huge difference between number of search results, but the quality of search results in 5 was a lot better. So 9,680,000 versus 9,330,000, but better quality of search results. So convention, of course, is there that you don't necessarily need an and or you don't need a plus sign, but out of experience and for you guys to learn, and something that I've already mentioned in the book that we have produced as part of our training notes, we have taken the liberty to make you guys learn from our experience, not necessarily from what the Google tells us. Um, so now, what did we find in all these 5 different search outcomes? Number 1 is that we found that market research is the most popular search word because it is coming more frequently. The 3 keywords, market, the research, and the analysis are more popular. So instead of study, we have to use analysis. Um, and then the search query 4 is more precise, but the search query 3 gave most, which means that ended work well without the search terms in quote. So it is just analysis for you to understand. The terms and the keyword are matched in a way that the because we can only guess how the search engine is reacting to our search query with these variations, we can tell you for a fact that every time we look at how the search engine treats it, um, is that it looks at 3 different areas, which is what I explained before: the meta tags, it looks at the URL, it looks at the description as a priority. And if there is a web page that matches all, that has these wordings and all 3 meta tags, then it is more favorable. It is something that you will see. So the drawback is that there could be a lot of information embedded in the deeper layers of the text, which could be ignored. So anytime that you get search results and you find that there is a term missing, or you feel that it may not have everything you need, you still show up the page, because if you go into a deeper layer, you'll find that Google does not only look at the meta tags, it goes a step further and looks up the subheadings and the other paragraphs and the bold captions and so on. However, it doesn't show it here. It's because it has a limit space. So there is that limitation. However, the priority is meta tags. The priority is that whenever it finds all 3, the title and all 3 components to have the keywords or the search words, it becomes more favorable. So this is how it has reacted. The search results apply to synonyms also. That means that you may want to change. Like if you see that a lot of results have analysis coming instead of study, then pay attention to that. Pay attention to the predictive, the options that it gives while you type. It just gives you the drop down. Look that up also. So prioritizing is simultaneous occurrence of words in HTML codes, in popularity, search history, context, operation, operator selections that you do and the keywords that you use. So this is like not just the operators themselves, but there's a whole story behind. So this is in comparison, when you talk about eliminating the end operator or the plus sign, and this is where I feel, or so the slide we were at was about not empty or minus sign. Minus is an eliminator. It basically gets rid of those searched keywords, which or the keywords that you have used, but you find that either they're giving the wrong results, or there is a word that is getting confused with another word which is more popular and you don't necessarily need that. In this instance, Windows, you're looking for Windows for the house, for the home, and the Microsoft Windows keep coming, so you need to get rid of the word Microsoft Windows, so you use a minus sign. Minus has the same convention of application when you put where you put the plus sign, which is to make sure that the signs of these notations are right next to the term that you want to get rid of or you want to be excluded from your search results. So just as an example, let me show you. I think I have it here. I'm going to show it to you in the browser, so that I have the I have the example that proves thing works. So, instance, I'm panels. This and I'm going to search for Windows panel and see what I get. So anytime I look for Windows panel or window panels that has to do with the home Windows, it is not the Microsoft Windows. The results I get is for Microsoft Windows control panels, how to open control panels, Windows, and so on. And it becomes a problem. So the best way to get rid of it is to first try getting rid of the word Microsoft. So what I did is I used Windows panel minus Microsoft. See how the minus sign is right next to Microsoft. And let's run it, see how much. It is a refining process. Minus is sign you use to refine your queries, because refining it once or just putting trying to get rid of one term may not be enough. So let's see, what did I get by putting minus sign? I got rid of the word Microsoft, but still somehow it is showing up as control panel, as panel. So I don't think I need that kind of panel, which is not a window, the home window panel. So I'm going to try to get rid of the word panel as well. So here is something that I can do. In addition to getting rid of Windows, I can put here control panel. So I can use more than one minus signs in refining my search. And the same goes for the plus sign. You can put as many, well, not as many, because there is a limit of 180 characters in a single search. So you just have to mind that, and try not to use more than 18 words in a single search query. And there is no actually hard and fast rules. Google keeps changing, how much you can put. But the most important thing is how many minus signs or how many plus signs or how long can you make a single search query, and whether or not it will work. If you put more and more to it. So what is the limit? Generally, as a rule of thumb, we don't use more than 4 terms with the minus sign or a plus sign or any of the notations. Even what we use in the advanced operators, we try not to use more than 4 of the same operators in a single search query. Somehow it just gets weirded out. So I don't have a explanation for that, but that's all I can tell you. So let's hit the search button, and now we should have gotten rid of the Microsoft and a control panel. And looking at the search result, first of all, we got the windows that we need, not the Microsoft windows, but the windows for the homes, like panels and windows, every doors. You can see that started to make better sense. So this is where we use minus. Okay. One of the things that we do with the parentheses, or the question that you have asked about the nested search. First of all, let me tell you, there is no, like, mathematically you can talk about, or algebraically speaking, you can talk about nested expressions, but it is not really very prudent to use that term or those kind of expressions while you're doing your search, especially in Google. It does not, like I mentioned before, it doesn't support the parentheses, but it creates a problem where you have to search between two groups of phrases or two groups of things. When those have to be compared and searched, then there is no other way to group them together or put them in comparison to each other without putting the parentheses for comparing each group. Like here, we've got redbirds and bluebirds, or brown kangaroo, white kangaroo. So we are trying to compare, uh, but using the term or can be replaced by and or a plus sign. It all depends on if you want both or if you want a comparison. However, the way you put these in parentheses and you compare is there are a few variations to that. The first is this query: redbirds, bluebirds, or these two as group. Let's call this one as one group, and the other, brown kangaroo and white kangaroo, is another group. Alternatively, we can put redbird, bluebirds, or brown kangaroo, white kangaroo. And guess what happens? If we have to assume that there is a plus sign in between, then technically speaking, these two should have been grouped anyways by default. Like redbirds and bluebirds, the missing sign here, assumed to be a plus sign, should be a group. And same thing with brown kangaroo and white kangaroo as two different terms. But remember the convention of using the operator to do the choice or make the choice. The OR operator looks, what does it look for? The first term that falls right before it and the other term that is right next to it, right? So it should ideally be searching bluebird and brown kangaroo. However, if we had to put these in parentheses, these two, then the precedence would be to search, to make a distinction or make a choice between bluebird and a brown kangaroo, and then look for redbird and white kangaroo as a secondary choice, because one has to take a precedence of another over another, because it is not like it is something that can happen all at one time in one go. It has to have some sequence, and the sequence is, by the rule, is that it should, whatever is in the parenthesis should be one group and it should be compared. So if we had not put a, let's say, a parenthesis after redbird as we have put in number 3, and the same thing, we don't enclose brown kangaroo to make it one search query between bluebird and a brown kangaroo, then it would have searched for everything that is on its extreme left and its extreme right. But by putting these in parentheses, we are only telling it what it already knows. So the most useful query would be number 1 in this situation and not number 3, if you know what I'm saying. So number 1 makes more sense. So the nesting part here is that you got two groups. Simply speaking, you got red birds and bluebirds, and you got brown kangaroo and white kangaroo as two separate groups. So if it finds a group which is on the left hand side, that's what you will get in search results, or it would look for these two terms together as a group. So either of these, but only within groups. Like it has to be part of the group. It cannot be isolated if you put the you put them in parentheses. So in a way, it is a quotation over a quotation which says that find these two terms, but they have to be grouped together. So don't find brown kangaroo in isolation, or just don't find red bird and blue bird together, but only brown kangaroo on the right hand side. No, you have to find either both together or none of them, right? So that's what it means. This query number 1 makes more sense when you use parentheses. One example is right here, teenager. Let me see if I have the real life action of it in, so that I can copy and paste. Okay, I don't have it here, but let's see if I can copy this and put it in action. So I'm going to turn on the browser and I'm going to put this search query there. Look, I haven't tested this query, so I'm this is a query we did long time ago, so I don't know what the outcome would be now, but I want you to look at it a little bit more carefully. Just see how it is being put together. So this is what's doing. It's not okay. So I have no way of maximizing this, but I hope you can see that it says teenager and then or teen or adolescents or youth and young adult and suicide. So what we have done is, let's see the parentheses. Where are the parentheses used? Let me check. In this. So I missed this one. So this is what I've done. I've put teenager or see all of this grouped together, but here I've used the operator and as well. Okay, with the operator or. I want you to have a look at this query and see if it is coming out okay. Can you see if it is showing? All right. So I'm going to run it now and let's see what happens. So it is saying that look for the word teenager or teen or adolescent or youth and young adults. Youth and young adult, it is saying that find these two. Okay, and all this whole query is actually gathered because there is an option between these words because of the or operator, like teenager or teen would do, or adolescent would do, or youth will do. But you also want to find something to do with youth, with young adults, because this is another term that can be used. But we don't want to give it an or option. We want it to be there as part of the result. And then the word we are emphasizing on is suicide. So anything and everything that has to do with suicide, including the options which are put within the parentheses. So everything else or the dynamics of the entire query is actually dependent on how these words are chosen, except that you don't want to miss out on the primary keywords or the main keywords or the subject or the topic which has to do with suicide. So when I did that, look at the search results which I got. So I got these search results which looks like it has to do with suicide. It is prevention tips, youth, young adults. These wordings are there. So all the main wordings are there. The teen is there, the word teen, the young adult is there. So we got what we require. So this is how we have used the parenthesis. So I guess in a way this query actually worked, and the search results are here. We've seen it in action. So let me ask if this is what Chris, if this is what was something that you wanted to learn or to know, because nesting is nothing but parentheses. I don't want to put anything in a single long query with two parentheses with two different type of brackets. That's not how the mathematics as you use in algebra would work, or the search engine, and search engine is not designed for algebraic expressions as we like it to be. Okay, so let's continue. This is the last segment, and here we will start with the advanced search queries, which is all these um, declared, I guess, the declared words or the declared values, properties that we will be using now. So to begin with this, instead of introduction to these, we will start applying them. I would tell you that remember when we talked about the title and the description and the URLs, those are the elements that are being pulled and queried. When we talk about these operators on top, it says in title, all in title, in text, all in URL, all in text, in URL, and all in URL. So these are the ones that are going to query the metadata or the meta tags. The other operators are site, which is a domain name that we and we make sure that if we have to do a search, let's say in a social media account, let's say we want something to be found that is linked to LinkedIn or Facebook, then we can give it that domain name. Or if there is a particular site like airsassociation.org, we could use the operator site. However, everything else that is here may not be covered altogether, but all those that are important in doing the basic search, we will apply those, and we would also apply some examples just to show you how they work, and also to tell you how they work with the application of Boolean logic, as well as adding more of these in combination. So let's get started with the web page first, just to tell you where these operators would work. And I'll give you just an overview. Assume that this is one web page or an index page or a home page of a website. It has so many different I guess elements, we call them, because each one of them have a very individualistic position or layout, as well as the tags that are attached to it, and because they are to be explained so that you can relate those queries to where it actually gets applied. So here you can see that there is a description, there is an image here, there is a logo. All these are things that are part of the coding or HTML coding, and the search only understands the HTML language. So it's going to go, and all those advanced operators are going to query these elements like anchor links, the links that are within the web page that would take you somewhere else, or some other, let's say, web page has a link coming to you, or attached to your website, or link to your domain will also show up. And the headings would be queried. If you are to look for the title, you're going to use in title with a colon. So where it's going to find that title is going to be on the top, or in the meta tag or metadata of the HTML, it will be within the tag of title. So this is just a map, just to show you briefly. Now we are going to apply all of those. The tags here are mentioned, and beside tags, the search also will look at syntax. Syntax is another HTML coding convention, which is mentioned in the tags called syntax. Now, syntax, for example, bold words is B with the with the enclosed brackets, and headings are H1, H2, H3. Paragraphs are denoted by P, and so on. Images are E, IMG. So whatever is written in between are the texts that is queried. And depending on what type of search operator you have used at advanced level, it will start to query all these meta tags and syntax. So the first query, for example, file type. If I have to find something that is research related, for instance, that anything that is of value that has research in it, or a paper, or something that you need to download as more information as a single file, it needs to be identified. And if we have to look, for instance, for PDF files, which is more important than any other file, if you have to look for research papers, then we use the operator file type. Now, file types that we can query can be in the HTML format in the Microsoft Office, like Doc, Excel, PowerPoints. All these can be queried specifically by using the operator file type with a colon sign. As I mentioned before, file type is something that the search engine understands, and it is able to interpret it and relate it to the HTML querying language. If I call it a query language of the search engine, it is correct to say that is because it has the understanding of this word file type with the colon. Without colon, it is useless. It won't be considered as an action or a query. So colon is an action. The file type is what the name of the query is, or it is a declared thing, declared by the HTML that search engine query understands. So the first thing that you have to know about applying this in this case is a search that I did. What I did is I put Internet Research Specialist, and I want a file type which is PDF. So I got my search results in PDF. I want to show this in a practical way. So I'm going to apply this in a real query. For instance, I want, let's say, let's say CIRS examination, and I write file type, and I tell that to give me the PDF versions. So it's going to look up the word CIRS examination in file type PDF. And every time that I make a query, I make sure I leave a gap of at least one character. So what I did, and by the way, when you write this notation or this operator, make sure that you put the declared value. The value is the PDF. Value means the objective of it, of what to do. It is telling it to bring the PDFs that are attached to CIRS examination word. So I put it right next to the colon without leaving any gaps. And let's see if I can get any results. When I did that, what I got is a PDF, and the notation or the abbreviation of PDF shows up on the left side. See, if you look it up, because CIS has to do mostly with the exclusivity of our certification, then the search engine finds it easy to bring our links, which is airsassociation.org. Even though the PDFs could be found somewhere else that says CIRS syllabus, but because I did not declare a site here, or I was not specific in this query to where to find it, it is a general query that I did, and wherever the word CIRS examination is there and it is in PDF documents, it looked for it and searched, finding 31 search results. And now suppose that I have to find. Now see, if you look at the search results, you will see that there is another link that's coming up, like politics.co.uk. I'm not sure if internet research specialist link or the R doc there on their website, or third party link is not there. This is 30 books. Then another organization that is showing that it has my document, which is in PDF format. There could be other CIRS exams. I don't know, CIRS could be an abbreviation for something else as well. Like over here, it says Alliance of Information and Referral Services. Because it was a general word I used without defining my website, so it has pulled everything and anything that has these search terms that attaches to those web pages in a PDF format. So if I click on any of these links now, I should be able to find a PDF document that is downloadable. But if I wanted to be very specific and I want to make sure that it is querying my site, then I use another operator called site colon with my address airsassociation.org. This is the link. Again, one space. But look, when I use the operator site with the colon and put my website domain name right next to it, is considered to be one single declared property of the word site with the colon. So this is one query, and I combined it with a specific search phrase along with another operator, file type :PDF. Why I did that is because I don't want any results coming from any other website except my own. So if I'm searching for only in my domain name, I'm going to use site. And you can use site operator once only. Like in a single query, if you use it twice, let's say giving it another domain name, it becomes because it is logical. Here you to find something, it is not allowed you to have more than one operator, site colon, and the declared property. So that is one thing. The other thing is the file type. The same rule applies in file type. You cannot put two file types in one search query. Consider it a rule. I don't have to go deeper into why this is a rule, but if it is a rule, then it is a rule which we have to understand. There will be other search operators that you can use multiple times, and we will come to that later. So right now I'm going to execute this query. So what I found is that all of those PDFs that had the CIRS examination with the within my site or my domain is just 3 search results. See, if you look at the links right here, it's all coming from airsassociation.org, same that I have put right in front of site colon, airsassociation.org. So instead of going through the slides, I'm giving it to you as a practical example, so that you know how it is functioning, and it saves me time in the sense that slide might have some of the things that may not be as useful. So to eliminate that, cutting back to the slide. So this is the use of file type operator. And by the way, you have to know that there are certain type of documents that has more importance. Like if you have to find articles, you can definitely you don't have to use file type, because everything is in HTML format. Like the articles that you view on your laptop or wherever you look at them, you are looking at the HTML document. However, if you have to look for research papers or white papers or something that is of more importance and has a substantial data in it, then PDF is the best search that you can look for. And if you're looking for PowerPoints, you get some really nice PowerPoints by just putting PPT in your file type. So just as in, and by the way, if you have to look for documents in Excel format, like data, if I have to use a census, or if I have to copy a data, look for a data table, then I would use file type Excel. And just give you an example, this is like at the top of my head, so it's not like a search that I'm doing, but I'm going to attempt to find Excel to look for some data tables. So if I use and by the way, if I use file type, like I'll explain that in a you know in a slide. Let's show you. So there is a convention in certain type of certain type of advanced search operators that we have to be aware of. Like I've given you an example in this slide. Like using the file type, you can, let's suppose you're searching for Elasticsearch, and you put Elasticsearch as a search phrase before you type in the search operator file type PDF, you would get the same results as you would if you had put the file type PDF before Elasticsearch. So these can be manipulated. This could be before, this could be the search phrase could be after. So in this case, in this particular case, this is pretty much doable, and you get same number of search results. See right here, 46,400, 46,400. So this is something that I thought you might want to note down. But I'm going to find Excel sheet. So let's see, census, population, 2018, and I say file type XLS. Yes. So the data I got was in Excel format. See all of these XLS on the left corner, these little small the words right here is what's telling you that these are Excel format. So if I click on this, I can download the Excel file, and would have the data in it, which would be useful, especially for statisticians or those people who are looking for raw data. They find file type query to be very useful. Another thing about the file type is, as an example, if I had explained to you the concept of declared property and the value that it is searching for, you would understand what I mean by the example I'm about to give you. But while I'm explaining it to you as a query, I will see if I can explain the same concept in a concise way. So let's suppose I'm looking for a form 1040 from IRS, and I put IRS 1040 and I put a colon, and I say without okay, and I say PDF. What would it do? See, this is another variation of the same query to find the file type, except that I have not used the property, declared property called file type. All I did is I just picked up the colon and I used the colon instead. So what did it do? It executed a command which says that find IRS 1040 in PDF format. It has not asked me to put the file type here. And this is one variation, and I'm not doing the advanced class, so I cannot tell you the logic, but as someone who is going through this course today, you should always use file type and colon as a standard query. But this is one variation I'm showing. This variation is important because there are certain formats that the file type query itself won't support, or the search engine would not support. Like if you have to find, let's suppose you have to find MPEG files, or you have to find the JPG, or, the image files, you would just go simply to image and look for them. But if you have to query it and file type colon does not support it, like I'll show you that it won't support JPEG, for example. And the JPEG I need is for a white horse. It won't bring any result. But now what I do is that I remove the file type and I put over here JPEG, and I put white horse and I run it. I got the correct results. It did execute the query because I guess I broke the rule. I played with the colon and I found out that anything that you cannot find with the conventional advanced search, which is declared operators by Google, I could still do it by executing it by just putting 2 colons and get my search results. See the search results I got, it's all white horse. And if I want transparent JPEGs, I just put transparent right after colon and the word white horse within the quotations. And I should be able to get the search results I need. Here is a horse. It's not white somehow. Maybe the text that describes it is not correct, but it is transparent at the back. Or I can look for other JPEGs which have a transparent background. Here is a transparent background of white horse. So what I did is I overstepped a little. I just put the colon without putting the file type as a declared property, but force the search engine to produce something which is not conventional or something which is not recommended. So this is just the example of what you will learn in advanced search queries. Now let us just proceed a little bit more. In title. Okay. So now supposing we have to find something that is to look up the information which is in the title tag, or as you saw that I want a web page with the the home page design that I showed you. I want something that would be in the title of that page or at the top of the page as a heading, or something that has a brief description or a brief query. That means if I'm looking something in the title, I have to be very careful in putting the number of words, because if we are going to put a lot of words to search for the title or whatever is to be found on the title of a web page, then we cannot put like more than maybe 6 or 7 words or maybe 32 characters, because this is usually very brief. It's not like description. So if I put anything beyond what the search engine would understand, then it's just going to ignore it. So anything that is brief and which defines a page, and you're not interested in the deeper layers, you just want to make sure that you get to the right website that offers X, Y, and Z, or it has a specific title, then I use a search query called in title. So I'm asking the search to look into the title tags now. If I have to look for in title airs, for example, just the word airs, look what it brings me. It brings the word airs, but in only in title. But the title can be the abbreviation of something which may have a different meaning for as far as the name of the company, or it could be some product. It could be like putting something that is of most which is very important, yet you find that it is not it doesn't explain the entire text or context of what you require, then you will not use the in title query. You will use in text query. So if I have to find something in deeper layers of a web page, which means I want the web page to ignore the title part, but look up the more subtitles or the subheadings or the information, especially in the long pages, like if it is a text in a book or if it is a quotation that you're looking for. Obviously the quotation won't show up in the title, but you want that quotation to come up somewhere on web pages or be part of the web pages under the sub paragraphs or the lower paragraphs of that those pages. Then you have to use the in text. So for instance, let's find something more deeper which is difficult to get. Let's say, because I can only show CIRS, notice that I'm putting it in quotes. If I'm using it as a phrase, I always use the quotes, and at times the search results would come back and tell me to lose all those quotations, so that it has, because it is finding that the search phrase is not coming intact as you described it, yet it wants to find it for you, so it will ask you to please remove those quotations so it can play with the words. CIRS membership benefits, for example. Let's see, if I do index, would it find it? It found only CIRS membership benefits. But it picked up the wrong certification. So to improve this query, what I would do is I would use the the site colon, and I say AIRS Association.org, and I give it a gap in text, and I click so that I find this. See how it is giving search results. It is saying that CIRS is no result, because if I'm very specific and if it has to query more deeper into the text, I should not put it within quotations, is what it's saying. It's because I may have put the words wrong, or in the deeper text of my web pages, I may not have these words put in the same sequence. So it is asking me to get rid of the quotes. So anyway, we got the search results. And if I removed the quotes and I click it again, I find the combination of these, perhaps all the right text within my website. So this is where I use in-text. In-text is a deeper search query in the deeper layers of those web pages, and not just on the meta tags, you know. So this is in title, and then there is another search called all. What is the difference between in title and all in title? So all in title means that you want to be, I'm just going to explain it to you instead of, I'll just open up the slide and I'll explain it to you just to give you an idea. I'm not going to do a query on it. I don't have time for that. So just to tell you the difference, because you will notice that these operators come in these in flavors, but the common flavor it has is that every time you use in title, there is another search operator that says all in title, and similarly in URL, and then all in URL, and all in text and in text. So what does this all means? How does it change the nature of the query? All means that it is us telling you that make sure that anything that you put as a search phrase is part of the is part of the title in this instance, and nothing else. That means it is not giving you a choice. So it has to be everything that you put in there. And in title means that that phrase can be part of the title, and not all has to be part of the title. If you put it as a search phrase, then that search phrase entirely has to appear in the title. So that's what it's going to search for, or it's not going to give you the results. So in title, in URL, in text, which we will discuss, are similar in function when they are used with the word all. Another thing that is the barrier in using all in title is that if you don't know the exact wordings, you won't get the result. Second thing is that you cannot use all in title twice. Like site colon, you can't use twice. File type, you can't use twice. But all in title, in title, in URL, and in text, you can use more than a few times, because here you are saying that find in title this word or this phrase, and if you put another in title, that means and also find this or this. So there is this kind of situation where you are giving an option without using the all in those advanced search operators. So now we are coming to the end of our program today, but I'm going to finish up the slides that I'm supposed to. So all in text, as I mentioned to you, means that if you put all in text, for instance, Donald Trump healthcare bill, I'm sorry, this is not a good example, but I'll apply it anyways. All in text. So no, all in text. So all in text means that these words, if I have not put them within quotes, has to be a part of the text. So we are in text, not in title. Apologize. So let me just do this. In fact, it is done here. So just to save time, see what the outcome is. So what happened when I applied this query, Donald Trump healthcare bill, I got the search results, which is like, a small extract of meta tags. But deeper, if I clicked on these pages and I went deep and looked up, if anything is talked about in detail about Donald Trump and healthcare bill, I found that there was an article where this link took me, and there was these topics discussed more in detail. Donald Trump healthcare bill is discussed in more detail, and when I click on certain links which don't show up all these words in part of the description, and if my query is in text, I make sure that I go to that web page. I don't just rely on whether or not my snippet has those mentions or they're highlighted or not. I'm pretty sure that as long as I've used the in text colon with the wordings, that query would bring me the results of that information in the deeper layers of that web page. So I don't want to get fooled by the fact that if they don't appear in any of these three components, it is not in the deeper layers of the text. So this is the usefulness of it. But when we say all in text, what we are saying is that all these words, see, the thing is that it took all in text as these words coming separately. That means Donald Trump is coming and healthcare bill is coming. Had I put this within quotes, it may not have found this document. Why? Because it would be forced to look for all these four words together, and if it didn't find it in the deeper layers, the all in text query would fail. So usually when people do in text, they try not to put it within quotes, just so that they can actually find what they're looking for or find something related to it. So this is my explanation of how the in-text works. I don't want to go into the coding part and tell you the different layers of it and how they show up, because occasionally we do run into problems with people not finding things in the web pages because they feel that those words are not there and they get confused why they are not found. So we give more better explanations through opening up the source code and explaining it that way. We are going to ignore it for now. In URL is a very important query operator. This is mostly, first of all, you have to know that all the web pages has some convention of defining where that link is taking you. For someone who is used to looking up search result as a proficient researcher who makes a decision at the time the search results come just by reading the links and everything else in snippets and without wasting time of clicking on it and getting there and then getting disappointed, is they make their choice based on all these, by reading all these three elements, and most importantly, the green link that you see important. It gives you idea what the search is about. For instance, if you are convention or find some article, you run an URL query to find, let's say, blogs or articles, with the dates in it, like a month, or if you have to look for blogs or forums or something of that sort, because anytime that you go to a forum or a blog, you'll notice at the top where the search address is that there is a word blog in there, because that's what defines the search page. So lot of times when your search fails in finding the right search phrase in there, or it doesn't match what you're looking for, then you do a deeper search and you use in URL. For example, Google has stopped using the what used to be the advanced search operators for finding blogs or to find information in forums and so on. So because they sort of demuted, or they basically discontinued those, so we started using in URL, knowing that we don't have a clear base, then we rely on the URL versus the blog, knowing that URL versus blog are like blogs or forums and so on. That's the direction that you want to go. So if you want, if I can let me run this query and show you the outcome, how useful it is. So I use in URL bbc.com, so I've replaced it with a site. I know that it is a site colon and bbc.com is the URL. It would work the same as in URL, because the results that I get would also have the same domain name. But since this is specifically to make you understand how powerful in URL is, so I've used in URL with the bbc.com as the website domain, and then I've used in URL again colon news, because I know that link that I'm looking for would have the word news in it. And then in URL I'm looking for a news that has to do with facial recognition, and that news came in 2015. So this is what my query is, and I'm going to execute this now in front of you. And look what I found. I found the results, which is that, and if I click on the, and see, look at the link, it has the word news, it has bbc.com and everything else. But see right here, it shows facial recognition here, but if I go on this link, I'll find this information which is precise, and it has a news dated 2000, somewhere in 2015. So oops. So at least what I did is that I actually, having an idea of when the news came, I used this as a search operator. I used in URL in a very effective way. Same thing if I have to look for a blog. So if I say that I want a blog in URL, because what used to be blog colon or in blog colon is discontinued. And I guess this could be the reason that instead you could use in URL. So I'm going to write in URL, and I'm going to say, what could be a blog site? Never mind the blog site. Let's say a blog with the words internet search engine. In fact, let me make it a little bit loose query. I'm going to remove the colon. I'm going to put in URL, and I'm going to put blog. Then I'm going to give it a space, because right now a blog that I don't know where to find the blog. I'm just putting the in URL the term blog, and I'm using internet search engine, so it could find either internet search or a search engine. So at least I get some results. I have not enclosed them in quotations. When I say 2018, for example, and I click on it, let's see what I find. What I found is a blog in Hotspot. I found another blog in neilpatel.com, and all these are blogs, right? And if I click on them, see, even before I click on them, if it is a blog that's and it has a date and time, I still see 2018, right? So this is not the usefulness of is I don't have the option to use or anything. Even to search for groups, and if you have to search for in social media, then you could very easily use site colon. And the last thing I will discuss with you is another operator which is important. It's called related. Related is important because what it is doing is it's simply matching similar keywords or similar meta tags or the sites that has similar meta tags. For example, if I say related to bbc.com, let's say, so I'm saying that find me all those websites that are news related or are similar or comparable to bbc.com. So I use related with a colon, and I'm going to hit enter. It didn't do it. Why it didn't do it, I don't know. So let's say I do cbc.com. Maybe I'm using the wrong website names. What is BBC? Okay, so I'm using the wrong link. I apologize for that. Here it is. Okay, I got it. So the link was wrong. So when I did related bbc.co.uk, I got the times.co.uk, Financial Times. All these probably have the same keyword, same meta tag, same type of information, same description that has to do with news. So all the related websites just showed up. If I have to use related, and if I try to use any other let's say advanced operator, if I use that, then it won't work because this query, this advanced searched operator works in isolation. It doesn't work with anything else. So let's just end it at this. I think there's enough information for you guys to absorb, and it has been a pleasure, and I hope that the information was useful, and rest assured that the notes that you will get and the documents that you will be downloading on Monday, it should cover not just what we have discussed today, but so many other things which we touched on briefly. The idea is really to get you to understand the concept, the operation of the basic search queries, and get you introduced to the advanced search queries, and the concept of context, and how you build your search phrases, the way the search engine interprets your intent, is also briefly discussed today. So all in all, I think that there is enough material for you guys to get the basic understanding of how the search should work for you, and whatever questions you have or specific search queries that relates to your professional life that you are interested in, for instance, for recruiters, for anyone who is looking to do social media search, or collect data or do data mining, they might have very specific needs, and they might want to learn more about the queries that are most useful and what they do, and that is something that I would be willing to take up and respond as a set of instructions just to help you in what you do. So feel free to send me an email. My email address is naveedm, it's naveed m@yahoo.com. And at the same time, I thank you and I apologize for any interruptions that came about and for the technical difficulties that you had to face. So good luck and have a nice day. And we do have another webinar coming, which is the next level in the series that I spoke in my first slide, which is I'm going to share quickly. The next webinar is level 3. It's web search with advanced search operators. Not sure of the dates, but this is the next level. And above that, which is level 4, is where we actually start using what we have learned in 1, 2, and 3. So don't forget to look them up on our website. And once again, thank you for your time and have a great day.